All right, guys. So this is my third time trying to record this for you. So third time's a charm. So metabolism. When we talk about cellular respiration, basically what we're looking at is how we use energy. And we use the term metabolism helps to describe how we do that. How we take oxygen and break glucose down into usable types of energy for us. So we can do this in our body, right? We have this ability in our bodies, in our cells, constantly. We are doing it millions of times a day to create and to use energy. Where do we get energy from? Food and nutrients, as well as from oxygen. So the key, in order for us to break down this glucose is, yes, you need the glucose, you need the food first. You also need that oxygen if you want to do it efficiently. So metabolism, the basic definition of metabolism is the process of obtaining and converting energy. That's what it is. People who have a high metabolism do this really efficiently and very quickly. Those of us who have lower metabolisms, it takes us a little bit longer to do that. Now, there's other things that can impact our metabolism. Of course, genetics, exercise. If we exercise regularly, our metabolism will increase. Diet, making sure we're eating healthy and we're not starving ourselves or we're not overdoing it. Environmental factors, smoking the cigarettes, drinking the booze, all that stuff. So we use cellular respiration. Cellular respiration does that. It converts and breaks down energy. And what do we do with it? We work. Or as you guys might say, we work. Okay. So energy needs to be transformed, okay? It needs to be broken down or built up. Those are the two main things. We're going to focus on today the breakdown of energy as a way for your cells to extract it, okay? Now there's three main players in this. There's three main energy-carrying molecules: ATP, NADH, and FADH2. ATP is essentially, those are the $1 bills, right? That's the energy. If glucose is your $100 bill, ATP is just a broken down form of that, a simpler form of that we can use like in a vending machine. Remember my awesome analogy that you can't use a $100 bill in a vending machine, you have to use dollars in vending machines. So glucose, ATP is just glucose in a different form, more or less, broken down. Then you got these two guys. These two I think about are like bodyguards, okay? They're the bodyguards for electrons. Electrons are a source of energy. They move, they create energy when they move, or they release energy when they move. They're the bodyguards. So like they're the ones that kind of shuffle these electrons along so that energy can be released. So just kind of keep those three bad in mind. Let's talk about ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is our end product. This is what we want. This is $, $, okay? There's three parts. There's an adenosine, which is actually, fun fact, a nucleic acid, or let's just say a protein. There's a ribose, which is a sugar. And then your three phosphates, adenosine, meaning three phosphates. That's all it is. So when the energy from the phosphate bond is broken down, that's where we get the energy. So when you break these little P's away, little phosphates, you get energy. This is where energy is released through this process. So when you go from adenosine triphosphate to adenosine diphosphate, you get a party. Here's my little party. Yay! I don't know what that's supposed to be. Confetti. It's a party because you're releasing energy. And these are high energy bonds. When you break off these phosphates, much energy is released. So where does this all go down? All goes down in the mitochondria or the mitochondrion, right? That's just a singular singular version of mitochondria. That's what I meant. So these look like little tiny, I don't know, they're kind of gross, like space larvae. So inside here, this is your matrix, okay? This is the fluid that's like inside the inner membrane, okay? This is the inner membrane right here. This is the outer membrane right here. And then this is just the space in between, okay? That's about it. So here's the thing though, the electron transport chain, this is why we need all these little membrane-y things here. The electron transport chain needs to happen on a membrane. So the reason why there's all those folds there is that it's more space for the electron transport chain to take place. Here we go. Hopefully you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Steps of cellular respiration. Glycolysis, you got your Krebs cycle or your citric acid cycle, and your electron transport chain. Oh, that looks familiar. I know, right? So this is what it looks like. So the glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. The Krebs cycle, this is where you have your release of carbon dioxide. And we saw this, well, we saw it in our fermentation lab, but this is when you have your release of carbon dioxide. The electron transport chain is where you have the release of water, and it's also where you're going to use oxygen. So when we talk about cyanide, for example, the poison, what happens is it stops this right here. It stops this process. It stops oxygen being used. So if there's no oxygen being used, there's no ATP being made. So somebody dies of what's called hypoxia, where it's almost like suffocation, but they have a ton of oxygen in their blood, but they're just not getting to it. Or your cells can't get to it because cyanide blocks that. Glycolysis, glycolysis. So glyco meaning sugar, lysis meaning split up. Boom, boom, boom. Occurs in the cytoplasm. So it's outside the mitochondria. What you're doing is you're going from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going from 6 carbons to 3 carbons. That's what glycolysis does right there. Breaks up that first molecule. Okay, that first big molecule. Oh wait, didn't I just draw that? Yeah, I did. That's probably a better drawing of what I gave you, but that's what it's doing. And we call these pyruvic acids. Boom. Oh wait, it happens in the cytoplasm. Didn't you just say that? Sure did. Just repeating myself. Here's the thing that I want you guys to look at though, is look at how many little mitochondria there are. Mitochondrions. Right? So on every single one of these, there's like little thousands of electron transport chains happening here. And cellular respiration happens about every 3 seconds. So it is happening trillions and billions of times in our cells constantly. So next time you think about it, say, thank you, cells, for breaking down energy in usable forms that I can use to stare at my Snapchat. Here's where things get weird. You've got your Krebs cycle, named after the dude, right, that makes it, that named it. But it actually, citric acid is what it produces. So that's why we also call it the citric acid cycle. And it happens in the matrix. It happens in the inside of the mitochondria. So what happens is after glycolysis, those pyruvic acids have to travel inside the matrix, okay? Just like Neo. Yeah, okay. So what happens here, you have a series of, and I'm going to show you a diagram in a second. You have a series of bonds being broken and combined. What that does is it helps to release energy, and it also helps to release electrons. That's what we want. Okay, so what we're doing here is, our job here is to release the electrons so that the electrons can go through the electron transport chain, and so that they can basically create ATP synthase, which makes ATP for all intents and purposes. So that's really what we're doing here. We call it the citric acid cycle because you're continually making citric acid as well as breaking it apart. Wow, what a great drawing. Okay, so here we go. So what we're doing here is you've got your pyruvic acid. Whoopsie. This came from glucose. Okay, boom. So what you're going to have, this is a cycle, right? So this constantly is this cycles around. So you've got your pyruvic acid, and you've got this guy leaves and goes and forms carbon dioxide. Okay, now you've got these two. They combine with these molecules that are just kind of hanging out. Right, 2, 3, oops. Boom, 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 boom. So they'll bind together, and they form citric acid. Then again, these two leave to form carbon dioxide. This guy's left, goes back up, does it again, does it again, does it again. What's the purpose here? Twofold. One, you want to get rid of your carbon dioxide. And two, by doing this, you're releasing, you're freeing up your electrons to go into the electron transport chain. So this is super convoluted and complicated. So don't get too freaked out about this, the citric acid cycle. Just know a couple things. So this looks really scary and horrible and complicated. So here are some things I want you to know. Number one, again, the carbon dioxide is being released. Boom. Giddy up. Number two, it's a cycle. And that cycle involves the creation of citric acid. Okay? You also have the introduction of your bodyguards. And their job is to get that electron and move it to the ETC. It's kind of like, hey everyone, your electron is Justin Bieber and he's in the club and he's starting fights. So your NADH and your FAD2 got to come pick him up and take him home. So here's the electron transport chain. So what happens is electrons basically, they bounce along the membrane, the intermembrane inside the mitochondria, and in the process, they do a couple things. They set off a chain reaction of chemical reactions that result in the production of ATP, okay? So that's where you get this, bam. So what does that look like in real life? Well, kind of this. So here are your bodyguards, right? Carrying these guys along. So we go boom, 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 boom. And at the very end, what happens is your electron forms water, okay? And it also facilitates this happening. So with ATP, you're also going to see a release of hydronium ions, which is why you're going to have an acidic buildup, because you're having more of these, which is going to increase the acidity. So that's why we have like lactic acid buildup in our legs when we don't have enough oxygen. Cool, cool. Here it is again. So the electron carrying molecules, your bodyguards, we'll call them NAD and FADs. Oh my God, I just made that up. So they're the ones that are going to make sure that your electrons get where you need to go. They're taking Justin Bieber out before he causes too many problems. So you don't need oxygen necessarily. It is preferred, but you don't necessarily need oxygen. This is a no oxygen situation. No oxygen's allowed. So what happens is it happens in the cytoplasm. It does not even go into the mitochondria. So what happens is when you have you need energy and you don't have enough water or you don't have enough oxygen in your body, that your body's like, well, I got to do something, so I'm going to do this. And it just starts breaking down stuff left and right without not a lot of oxygen, okay? So there's two different types. There's the lactic acid and there's the alcohol, okay? Lactic acid happens in muscles, and that's when you run out of oxygen. So you're producing ATP from some, but you're also getting this lactic acid buildup, which is going to cause the muscle soreness. With alcohol, yeast is going to help this. Yeast is going to be basically your enzyme to help facilitate this process. It helps alcohol fermentation, or the process of fermentation makes chocolate, coffee, booze, basically anything that's great in life, except for sauerkraut and kombucha, because that's gross. This is just a larger kind of a diagram of what's happening here. Fermentation, that should say fermentation. So again, in the cytoplasm, you've got some ATP being released, not a lot. You've got your glucose being broken down. You've got your NADs, your tiny little bodyguard there, just looking for an electron, can't find it. And then you have this being broken apart. Simple, but you're not getting the yield of energy that you would if you had oxygen. Okay, so this is going to be your aerobic, this is going to be oxygen, and that's going to feel great. And this is going to be your no oxygen. Ready? Like the Ghostbuster sign. And this is going to make you not feel good. So here you've got 2 ATP here, 2 ATP, and the mother load, 28 to 32 ATP. So you've got about 36 ATP being formed here. Here, not so much. You're looking at maybe 2-ish. You're looking at under 10. Under 10 ATP. Okay? Now, I'm being generous when I say that. All right, loves. So what I want you to do is obviously take notes, but also bring in some questions. Any questions you have, anything you need clarification on, I will definitely go over that before you have the quiz tomorrow, okay?